Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 25th of July 2025. The first chart is the S&P ASX 200 index. This is the XJO, the parent index of the Australian Stock Exchange. We put in some lines just quickly. The highs of the range come through here, catches the top of this bar. You can see the market broke out or attempted to break out last week. This week, the market's come back in consolidation mode. Volume did increase slightly to about the average, so it was genuine trading. And the fact that spread has narrowed considerably as prices pulled back is quite a positive. You like to see a market which really accelerates higher with an increased spread, and then the period of consolidation taking place right up in the range of the up bar is generally a sign of strength. This is not complete yet. It could pull back further, but at this stage, there's a strong attempt to consolidate in response to last week's attempt to break out. And you'll see that same pattern across a number of the charts today. This is the mid-cap sector, and you'll see a similar pattern here. Put in the similar lines we saw before. This market was a little ahead of the parent index for a while. You can see the attempt to break out occurred here. The market's been consolidating on top of the actual highs of the range. Last week saw a similar push higher, and this week has seen an attempt to consolidate right up high in the range on an increase in volume, actually quite a bit above average volume. So it's showing you that supply has been drawn out, and that just shows you the effort the market's made to absorb that supply right up high in the range. If that was all selling pressure, the market would have pulled back further in response. The fact that it was right up high in the range suggests there was strong buying support emerge, which absorbed that supply, or at least attempted to absorb it, and did so this week. This is the small ordinary sector, and a similar pattern once again. Here's the highs of the range. This market was sitting right at the highs of the range for a number of weeks there, attempting to absorb supply. It broke out or attempted to break out last week, and this week has seen a period of consolidation in response, right up high in the range again. Perhaps not quite as strong as the previous two charts, but in a similar fashion, no doubt. Volume increased to about the average, so it was genuine trading. I think this market's doing quite well, similar to the previous two charts. Next chart is the ASX financial sector, easily the largest sector on the Australian Stock Exchange. Here's the highs of the range. You can see this market did exceed those highs previously. Price had pushed up. It made a secondary attempt to push up here, and the market had been consolidating within the range of this bar for some time now. And this week, with the consolidation on the overall market this week, this market did pull back, and it's actually testing the highs of the range, which is right there. Here's the lows of its current range in a similar position. You would like to see the market find sufficient support at this level, and you wouldn't like to see it move much lower. The next level down is through here. One below that is where buying support emerged initially here. So at this point, the market's come back. It's effectively testing the breakout line for strength. It's a little disappointing the market pulled back so deeply, but we'll see how the market responds this week. And at this point, the market's right at the lows of the range. And at this point, the market's right at the lows of the current range and the old breakout level. This is the metals and mining subsector. Here was the initial level we'd been looking at. Price just popped its head above that level last week. The next level above comes through here, like that. You can see the market's accelerated higher. There was a little test for supply below the previous bar's close last week prior to the attempt to push higher. And the close well off this week's high does show you that supply was drawn out from this level here in the background. So the volume was increased, was above the average. So you have seen some supply drawn out. I would expect you'll see the market come back early next week, test this level for strength, and possibly close with a narrowing spread just below the previous close, which was here. We'll see how that turns out. That'll be some form of consolidation bar in response. I don't expect the market will just continue higher unless commodities overseas really rocket. But this market will more likely just come back a little with a narrower spread and attempt to consolidate in response, especially as it's pretty obvious that supply was drawn out this week as the market pushed above this important level. The ASX gold sector is holding on right at the lows of the range here. The underlying price of gold has been bumping along sideways and did attempt to move higher, but failed and saw supply drawn out this week. And that's pretty much how this market's traded as well. There was an attempt to push higher, which failed, and prices pushed lower in response. And price has settled right at this level here for the week. It's looking a little vulnerable at this level, and there's no doubt that some profit taking has occurred up at the highs here. If the market cannot hold on at this level, you've got the next level coming through here, like that, around this 10,000 level. So I would expect if the market can't hold on at its current level, around this 11,000 level on this chart, it'll pull back and attempt to find support here at this 10,000 level. This is the ASX energy sector. We saw some buying support emerge back here. We called it out at the time. There was a little period of consolidation in response before the market pushed up to this level here. There was a period of consolidation there. Here was the first level of importance, which the market pushed above quite comfortably. You've got the next level above right up here. And the market did find some supply drawn out in response when the market challenged that level. In response, it pulled back, spent a month in consolidation mode here, and then this week it's pushed back above this level and just popped its head over the top. It's not really even an attempt to break out at this point. It's really a test, a minor test of this breakdown line in the background. So you may see the market just bump around like this for a few days next week prior to any attempt to push higher in response. And if supply continues to be drawn out, the market may come back a little more deeply prior to any attempt to push higher. This is the healthcare sector. And once again, we saw some buying support emerge down here. It didn't look particularly strong at the time. We noted that. Volume was only modest, but the market did gather itself up. It pushed higher, and through here was the real period of accumulation, which took place over a number of weeks. There was an attempt to break out last week. You can see that the market did test for supply below the previous bar's close for a period last week before the market continued to push higher. Now in the background, we've got the highs of the range coming through here, the lows of the overall range through here, and the market's pushed up. I would expect there will be some supply drawn out at this level. It's not really apparent at this stage, and the market's done a good job to push up through this level, at least to some degree, I imagine some of the pullback here saw at least some of the supply that would have been stale supply up at this level has sold out as price pulled back. But I still do expect there will be some supply drawn out above at this point, and there'll certainly be some at the highs of the range. So we'll see how this market's going. I would expect you'll see a similar bar next week to this week, with some trading below the previous bar's close, like this, prior to any attempt to move higher. So you'll get a little overlapping bar with a period of testing for supply below the previous bar's close, which will need to be successful prior to any attempt to push higher. This is the ASX industrial sector, which have been doing a pretty good job overall. We've followed it for weeks and weeks. It's been a great chart to follow. We saw the first signs of serious supply drawn out here. You can see the increase in volume that accompanied it. In response, the market's pulled back, which is a normal response. And there was a 2-week period of consolidation before last week the market attempt to push higher and back up to the highs of the range. And this week the market's come back in consolidation mode with a narrower spread and a reduction in volume. So that's suggesting to you that selling pressure is not overwhelming at this level. There may have been a little supply drawn out, but it's not overwhelming. You may see some testing for supply early next week, and then I would expect an attempt to push up to the highs of the range, or perhaps even an attempt to break out, just depending on how buoyant the overall market is. This is the ASX consumer staples sector, and it had pushed right up to the highs of the range previously, up here. Didn't quite tag them, which was a little disappointing. You do like to see the market actually touch the levels above, and it's a little minor sign of weakness when it doesn't do that in these circumstances. Then as the local market became more positive, this market being more a defensive market started to see some profit taking come out and some sector rotation most likely, and prices pulled back. And this week, prices right back at the lows of this bar and threatening to move lower. There was a little bit of an attempt to consolidate this week because volume did increase to average. Spread did narrow even though it came back to some degree. So there was some minor support there. It's looking vulnerable. You've got this level here which will continue across and offer some support if the market does pull back further. I think it probably will if the local market is strong again next week. But it's attempting to hold on, which is kind of what this market does. It's not a bad market, it's just a bit defensive. And when the overall market is strong, this market always shows a bit of softness. This is the consumer discretionary market, kind of the opposite to the previous chart. And this market did find resistance at this level for quite a period of time before it pushed above it on this bar. There was an attempt to consolidate, a secondary attempt to push higher, and it's come back and consolidated this week. So I was finding it a bit difficult to move higher. Highs of the range come through there, so it's a tough level for the market to negotiate a path through, and it's finding that to be the case. It's finding it difficult to punch above this level and move higher. I'm pretty confident if the parent index does break out, this market will also push through this level and out the top. But otherwise, you may see some further sideways action and consolidation while the market marks time, waiting to see if the parent index is truly going to break out. The last chart is the property sector. And we saw some buying support emerge in this market as well, similar to many of the other markets. Volume increased considerably, price pushed up. There was a period of consolidation through here before the market moved right up to the highs of the range here. It's been trading sideways in a range for a period now. There will be some supply drawn out from the left here, and the market's attempting to absorb that supply. You've probably got the highs of the range come through there like that. So it's a difficult level, similar to the previous chart. It's a difficult level to negotiate a path through. Spread did narrow a little this week. Volume was a little below the average, so it matched the narrower spread to some degree. I don't think this market is really going to accelerate higher unless the parent index, the XJO, also breaks out. And then I expect this market will continue higher as well. Just back to the parent index quickly to wrap up. Pretty clear what's happened. Strong buying support emerged on this bar. There was a brief period of consolidation in response. The market then pushed up and challenged the highs of the range through here. There was a period of consolidation just below that level before last week the market attempted to break out, and this week there's been a period of consolidation right up high in its range, and that's a relative sign of strength. If the market can complete its consolidation right up there, high in the previous bar's range, it would be a sign of strength, and you'll probably see an attempt to break out in response relatively soon, either next week or the week after. Okay, thanks for your time. See you again next week. See ya.